myself from like 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, it takes a second. Broadcast to YouTube. Yeah, there's... Hi. Okay. No, I got it working. I think we're on YouTube, too. So, hi. I'm Nicolette Swift, and this is Nicolette Swift Live. And so this is a live show that I started thanks to a Greater Columbus Arts Council grant. So episode 1 and 2 were kind of tests to try and get things working, and it looks like we have both YouTube and Facebook working now. So, yay. The first episode, I talked about my art, and that was part of the point, was to try and get me to be able to talk more about my art and to talk to others about their art. And so episode 2, then I talked to Matt Swift, my husband, about his art, and today I'm going to talk to Celia Peters about her art and her video. So, again, thank you to GCAC for the Artists in the Community grant that created all this. So, Celia, we've known each other for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been longer than I thought, right?
Yeah. Well, like, we met... I don't even know what I was burning something for you. I was making a DVD.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's
how we met from me hiring you. Right?
Yeah.
That's weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just DVD burning. I remember that. I don't remember which one it was. I don't know what it was.
No,
I do remember that.
And then you did the show at Homeport.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Public domain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then and you invited me to be part of that. And I was the one with TVs in the corner.
Right.
And then, we've gone from there, basically. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I helped edit Roxy.
Yes, you saved the day. You brought it to where, honestly, like, where I really wanted it. I mean, it was almost there, but it was just intangible things, and, you know, the editor that I worked with before, he did everything that I asked him to do, but I just needed, like, you know, that, I don't know, a little extra zhuzh.
And Roxy has been picked up by...
Yeah, by Shorts TV. So, and I actually need to check to see when it starts broadcasting, because I don't know. It was supposed to be fall, so I don't really know what that means. But yeah, it was picked up earlier this year. So very exciting to know. Picked up in both North America, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So
wow,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, it's really crazy to think about people in other parts of the world seeing my work.
So you just finished Roxy. You have distribution for that, and look for that on Shorts TV. And then recently you finished Mission also.
Yeah, so Mission was one that was done completely in Columbus. So, you know, written, produced, post-production, the whole nine. And so that was interesting.
And you showed that, not only have you shown that in a black box setting, but you've shown that in a white box setting, or white cube setting, I guess. So gallery versus black box. Right.
Because it's experimental.
Yeah.
So it really, for me, it fits in both worlds. Mm-hmm. It's scored. It's a silent film, basically, but there's a few sort of voiceovers, but pretty much it's the score speaks for the characters. So it sort of fits either way, and it also can be looped with no sound.
And where did that recently show? Like, where was wasn't that September, or August or September, that you had that up in Cleveland?
Yes, and it's still there. At Satellite Gallery in Cleveland. Awesome. It was, I was invited to do an installation piece, and so I built a whole, like, scenario, like a living room, and with all of this stuff, and there's a large TV, and so Mission is showing on the TV, like it's looped over and over. So I wanted it to be kind of like either the two main characters or two other people were there and just sort of just got up, and we're like looking at the room where they were watching this thing. I don't know. I like that about installation work. That feeling of like somebody just disappeared, and now you're there.
And how much longer is that up for?
Until early December. It comes down in December.
Awesome. I kind of jumped into this without like really starting out. Like, how did you become an artist or a filmmaker?
I became a filmmaker because many years ago I was asked to write a script when I still lived in Chicago, and I was planning to go to New York and go to grad school in New York. It was either going to be school or job, so it ended up being school. And when just from writing scripts and stuff, I decided I wanted to do a short, and I was lucky enough to partner with a couple of producers there who worked with me to do my first short. And once I directed something once, I was really hooked, because it was like the last piece of that. You write a script, you're seeing it in your head, and all of that. And I was coming to screenwriting sort of with this idea of looking at films and then reading the scripts and seeing how that transformation happened. So for me, then writing scripts, I was like, well, I need to make it happen. I need to make it visual. And so, yeah.
And didn't you work on set with I'm blanking right now. Spike Lee?
I didn't work on set with him. I interned in the development department.
Awesome.
So I went to set, when I could. But when I started interning there, he was in post-production with the film, and then right as I was leaving, went into production. So it was kind of tricky, but I learned a lot, reading scripts and reading not just scripts, but also books that were being considered, that he was considering as projects that he was going to develop. And so realizing what works, what doesn't work. Also just being inside a production company, because 40 Acres and a Mule is, Spike Lee works very, very efficiently. And so that was really awesome to see from the inside, to see how that works, how that can happen. Because he works really, really well. The company works it's very smoothly.
All right, so right now you are working on Godspeed.
Yes, I am.
And I was assistant director in that. You had more faith in me than I did, and
that on was the teaser.
Cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah, we shot the teaser to Godspeed. I don't know where I should be looking. I feel like
I know. Well, last time when I interviewed Matt, I was like either looking at the camera or down at and it feels awkward because
I'm talking to you, but I'm looking over there.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're not talking to me, then I'm over here lurking and being goonish, right?
Lurking.
At least you both have hair.
Yeah, Matt kept looking down.
That's funny.
So,
yeah, you worked on we did a teaser for Godspeed 2 years ago, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, and then you recently, again, recut it and made it what it was supposed to be. So thank you for that. But yeah, right now we're seeking investors, just really, pushing, planning to shoot next year. We're going to shoot next year, late next year. There are many sort of moving parts and many things in place, but yeah, I'm very excited because I feel like as much as I would have loved to have shot this like a long time ago, I feel like the time is right now. Like I feel like this is the perfect time for this film for many reasons, and not the least of which is all of the sort of fuckery that we're seeing now. I mean, can I say that? No.
Yeah, well, you did.
I did. Okay.
Awesome.
All of the stuff that we're seeing now that just sort of I think is revealing to people something about the industry that I think people didn't know. They didn't realize how widespread it is, because when you look beyond sort of the individual incidents of harassment, assault, all of those horrible things, you have to think about what that means for women working in the industry. And then the fact that the percentage of women in the Directors Guild is in the single digits, then it makes a little more sense. You know, this stuff, all of that stuff is not happening in a vacuum. And so for me, you know, I feel really fortunate to be making film now, because now with technology, independent filmmakers are able to do a whole lot more.
And from Columbus, Ohio.
From Columbus, Ohio, and we're able to get work directly to our audiences. So that also sort of makes it work. You can make it work for yourself and not have to be subject as much to that someone else who, you know, you may be going to for one thing, but you end up, you know, getting harassed or assaulted or whatever. I don't know.
So, and you just had an event for Godspeed.
I did. We had a reception to sort of introduce the project to people and connect. Excuse me, I'm a little congested. To connect with prospective investors and just kind of get it out there in circulation in that way, you know, with regard to that, because we're unfortunately, you know, filmmaking is not free, and that piece of it, even as an independent filmmaker, of course, that piece is important.
Well, and we're lucky enough to be in Columbus, Ohio, where we have support of places like the Greater Columbus Arts Council and
Film Columbus.
Film Columbus, but we are still considered Midwest, and so I see that as a positive for those of us trying to push bounds, but I think the draw is only slowly coming. I think we're getting there. I think with Cleveland getting the Marvel universe, and Cincinnati getting things like Carol, and Columbus having Arnold Schwarzenegger come and make film. We are getting there.
But I also think that we have a really wide open landscape for independent film, because there's so many resources here, and you know, the cost of doing business is so much less. The costs are so much less than either of the coasts, and you know, there's space available here. There's property there's property that's unoccupied, that's still usable. There's a lot of stuff here, and so I think that's kind of, as an independent filmmaker, that's what you want. You know, you want people that you can make deals with. You want people who, you know, are not necessarily used to dealing with studios and networks that have studio and network budgets. So they will work with you. And then having a lot of talent. And so for me, you know, I think when I came here, we were planning to shoot Godspeed in Detroit. And that had to do with the tax credit in Michigan. And, you know, I just realized that whole thing sort of imploded, but then I realized that Columbus would be a great place to shoot.
And we have a pretty good tax credit.
Yeah, Ohio has a very healthy tax credit. So, you know, I think, you know, with you know, if the tax credit is available to filmmakers, which I think will be happening, I think there's a strong lobby across the state, particularly here in Columbus. I know that, you know, Film Columbus, the Greater Columbus Film Commission, like we've been pushing for that, because there's a lot of talent here, and there are a lot of stories to be told, and it's a win-win for local economies. You know, there are jobs created. They may not be permanent jobs, but you know, you keep people working.
But they will be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They will be. okay, that's not necessarily a route I meant to go down, but I think it's a positive route, and I think we're going in the right direction as a city and as a state.
Can I say one other thing, though?
Yeah, sure.
That I was going to say about Columbus. You said we're still the Midwest. But the thing is...
I think that's a perception exterior of us. I just was saying that because I think that is a perception exterior of us.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that people should realize is that in this day and age, I mean, we see people making film all over because you don't have to be on either coast to do it. You know, you shoot wherever you need to shoot, but in terms of the other things, because things are done digitally, files are transported, people work remotely, it could be anywhere. And, you know, I think for example, before Atlanta became this, you know, stronghold of filmmaking, people probably were like, Atlanta? Why would you want to, you know what I mean? And look at it now.
We were down there last year, and I'm walking down the street doing one of my city walks where I strap cameras to my arms and legs, and I'm like, what's going on? All the streets are blocked off, and they're like, oh yeah, they're shooting the next Fast and Furious here, and it was before we got the one after that here in Cleveland, or in Ohio, I guess. But it was awkward because I just stumbled into the middle of this movie set, and I'm like, what's going on? And then this homeless guy walks up to me and is like, oh yeah, they just ran a car through here really fast. It was amazing. I'm getting the local tour by some homeless guy. So it was interesting that you could just stumble into that. Yeah. And still, I was like, oh, it looks like maybe there's a bomb squad down here or something. They've got, because so many cops and everything, and no, movie set. Just stumbled into it, and I think that's what's going to happen here. Is just you can stumble upon a movie set.
Absolutely,
and
it's going to be mine.
I'm not stumbling onto that. I'm just pushing my way onto it.
Yeah, you'll be there.
I will be there. I'll camp out there. So let's see. And as an artist, you're working on a project called Futures for the Rest of Us, and that will be at Blockfort.
Yes, so that would be at Blockfort, Columbus in May of 2018. The show opens on May 4th, which is a Friday. And Futures for the Rest of Us is a sci-fi themed visual art show, which will feature a group of artists from groups that traditionally have not been shown driving the narrative or leading the story in a sci-fi film. So those artists will be people of color, women, LGBTQ artists, disabled artists. And I've asked them to create a vision of or from the future through their particular lens, through their unique lens, whatever that may be. And so I'm super, super excited. I mean, for me, it's like merging, you know, I love visual art and I do visual art, but it's like merging visual art and science fiction around the sort of theme of narrative, around some sort of story. And, you know, the artists are all very different and they all are coming from different places. And, they all, you know, in terms of their proposals, they're all expressing, you know, they're all dealing with a theme, you know, very different, very personal to them, very unique to them, but, you know, having to do with the future.
And Blockfort is downtown, basically near CCAD, off of 6th.
It's on 6th.
It's on 6th. Off of Long, yes. So if you know how to get to Roosevelt's, it's right there.
Yeah, Roosevelt Coffee House, it's right near there. Blockfort is it's an amazing sort of new-ish gallery here. It's really exciting because it's one of the ones that's downtown. It's in a different part of town, but it has that feel. There's gallery there. There are also artist studios there. There's some other space in there, performance space. And so Adam and Megan, who own it, are really, really great. I feel very fortunate to be working with them because I'm getting support. I'm getting full support, but I'm also getting latitude. You know what I mean? When I proposed the show to them, they were behind it. and that, you know, we're moving on with that. So I'm really excited about this show.
Do we have questions? You're making faces over there. No?
You can feel free to scroll.
Oh, I see, like...
Nicole is excited for the show. Childress.
Oh, yeah. Ode to Octavia Butler.
Oh, yeah, Octavia Butler. One of my sheroes. So Octavia Butler is a black...
We're echoing. Can you turn something down? Something is echoing. Something is echoing somewhere. Can you turn something down?
Yeah.
What are we hearing? I know. You're handling this like a champ. Usually I'm like, I don't know what to do now. I hear myself. Okay, go ahead. Octavia Butler.
So Octavia Butler is really considered the grande dame of black sci-fi. She started writing in the early 70s and continued until she died in the early 2000s, and really brought something groundbreaking to the genre because she created these very compelling and engaging stories that had a lot of social commentary. Some of it was more existential, some of it was very political, some of it had to do with the environment, all of these things. Sometimes her worlds were dystopian, sometimes they weren't. But she basically put black characters in the lead of these stories that were dealing often with complex alien life forms, something that really had not been seen before. And it wasn't like it wasn't like in the stories that they're dealing with racism. They're dealing with sort of future issues. It's science fiction. It's just that we're present and we're driving the stories, which is, you know, it shouldn't be, but is revolutionary. And I think, although she started writing many years ago, it still is sort of revolutionary. So,
and that leads us into some of the side notes we have on our board. So I had not heard the term Afrofuturism. And someone commented when we were posting that this was going to happen, and they used that term. And so I was like, let's talk about this, because this is a really awesome.
So Afrofuturism is a very complex, it's a very sort of complex concept, but also very simple. I mean, I think at the most basic level, it's just like what it says. It's black people in the future. You know, within the context of sci-fi, speculative fiction, fantasy. And, you know, at this point, it sort of encompasses a very wide range of content. I think if you went to Comic-Con and you saw, you know, black people in cosplay, they would consider themselves a part of that movement as well. You know, and I would say Black Panther I would consider it Afrofuturism. You know, it's something that, again, I think that when Octavia Butler started writing, that phrase didn't exist. But that's what she was doing. Yeah. That's what she did. And so it's just sort of grown and grown. And I think, again, getting back to, we talked about technology and how it gives us access and, how it connects us. That's one of the ways that Afrofuturism has grown, because people are connecting all over the world. You know, they know that sort of other black people are wanting to see themselves in these stories and are creating stories and creating characters and doing all these things. And so now there's just, it's a growing movement that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like a movement and a genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you were just at New York Comic-Con, and you got interviews from people about your projects, or not just your projects, but projects that had strong black leads in sci-fi characters. So what was your response? Like, what was the response from people?
The response was very, very strong. It was extremely strong and really powerful. I basically asked people how they would feel about seeing a sci-fi film with a person of color as the lead, a woman of color as the lead, a woman as the lead. And you know, all of them were just like, I would love that. I would love that. And so then I would say, why? And they'd be like, because you don't see it. And we should have that. And we're here. And we want to see, you know, I want to see someone who looks like me, you know, leading the story. And I think that is real. And when it comes to just sort of the business of filmmaking, it's business. You know, there's a demand there, and there's a demand that's not being met. And so I want to be the one to do it. You know, I mean, honestly, I mean,
right.
It is. It's sort of like, for me, watching sci-fi since I was a girl, I love sci-fi and went to the movies, and my parents watched Star Trek, and obviously Star Trek had representation. It was an inclusive show, so that was that, and it made perfect sense to me because that was the world I was living in. Mm-hmm. But with regard to films, it was not so much, and so part of me was always kind of like, why is it never anybody who looks like me? But I still love the movies because they were great movies. Yeah. But I think, you know, the sort of reverse of that can happen as well when we have inclusion. You know, there's no idea about making something that's less than or that's low quality. So it's like, if you're working at a level of quality, there's no reason why there shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. You know, and there definitely is that need in the market.
So actually, it's my aunt Tammy Taylor has she made her observation that she's saying she finds it interesting that within sci-fi specifically, when cultures are being shown, the racism is much less. It's not an issue. It's not something that comes up. It's the one genre that can do that. Yeah,
and it makes sense because, I mean, I think it's sort of reflective of this optimism that we would hope, you know what I mean, that we will evolve past that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's, you know, I think often in sci-fi you see these other kinds of divisions, which I find very interesting. Like on Battlestar Galactica, you know, there were people from different, they were from different constellations. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the clannishness there. The Taurians and this group and that group, and they were all coming from different places, and that's where their identities were. Or even with the Expanse, you know, there's the people who come from the meteor belts, and people who come from Earth, and people who come from Mars. It's very liberating. I mean, and that's sort of, for me, what it is that you're talking about a future that is unwritten, so it can be whatever we want it to be. And that is the ultimate, you know, that's the ultimate freedom, is to be able to create these worlds that are not sort of bearing the yoke of the kind of histories that, you know, at least in the Western world, you know, people of color have dealt with. So, yeah, it's very exciting. It's a good place to be.
So McCall asked if musicians like Erykah Badu mm-hmm. and George Clinton would be a part of Afrofuturism.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. George Clinton, Sun Ra, you know, and Erykah Badu for sure. I mean, she has a very sort of spacey, and you know, I think it's interesting with Erykah Badu because it's not always like what she's saying. It's just the way that she does it, and the way that some of the songs are. It's just it is very much so. Yeah, Janelle Monáe is another one. You know, she's very much on that wavelength. I think we're going to see more and more though, because I think it's part of the whole idea in general in American culture, especially with like Wired magazine coming, you know, sort of growing, and to be smart is sexy. To be a nerd is cool. You know what I mean? And so you know, that definitely translates across culture and race and gender. It's just like, it's either you get that or you don't. Yeah. You know, I could say a political thing, but I won't. I could, you know.
Feel free, whatever.
No, I was going to say, I could say that, you know, if you voted for Trump, you probably don't get that. But,
right.
You know, this whole idea of science, though, having value, and that's real. You know, science, first of all, the premise is that you believe in science. So, there's that. And then, you know, the fact that you believe in it and you value it and you love it.
Did you handle the question from Tammy again about why you think sci-fi is able to do that, why it's able to, you know, cross boundaries of racism and sexism?
I think we've vaguely touched on it.
I mean, I just think because probably because we're creating content in the present, right? So we're aware of what the problems and what the challenges are. Yes. So when we're extrapolating to the future, we can deal with things in a different way than they were dealt with in the past. I think that's
hopeful too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Very hopeful.
Very hopeful. All right. So anything else that we're missing? I don't think we actually succeeded in getting YouTube to work still.
Oh, no, it's working.
No, YouTube is? Oh, wow. Okay. Because I can't see it from my side. Oh, magic. So magic. And I tweeted that we were going to be on YouTube, so I was hoping it would work.
It showed up.
It showed up. Yay. Technology. But that's part of this, right? Part of the grant is figuring out this. And then I tried to add Twitter, because Twitter has live video now,
right.
And so does Instagram, and so there was a service that handled both, and it still keeps crashing every time I try to, because it's not based in the U.S., and so I think it may be blocking my IP from accessing it. But we've got two things working.
Well, and I was telling you that I just spoke with a friend right now who's in Berlin. I spoke with a friend earlier today who's now in Berlin. Alex. Hey, Alex, I hope you're here. And she was really excited to tune in, Awesome. And I think that's, that again, that's part of that power, like connecting to a global community. And
we
being
can sit
aware.
Here in a basement in Columbus, Ohio, in a small...
We're in a basement?
We're in an awesome studio.
We are.
It cost us thousands and thousands of dollars. And, but I, as a small filmmaker, an experimental filmmaker, can make a basement work as a studio and, like, make, $30 lights as fill lights and still reach a global community.
Yeah.
And that is what is cool. So
Absolutely. And
we will get there.
Yeah, for sure.
So you are visiting a class in a couple days.
I am. I'm visiting Becca Nunn's film class at CCAD, Columbus College of Art and Design. So I'm really looking forward to it. I had the pleasure and the honor of going to a class that was taught by Liz Roberts last year, and that was a really good time. I mean, I'm, first of all, honored that someone will want me to come talk to their students, but also I'm very gratified and I guess grateful for the chance to be able to share anything that I can with people who are learning. People who love film, people who are learning, like, I'm like, whatever you need, let me know. And usually they teach me something too.
Yeah.
So.
I love those class talks, except for, like I was saying, I got this to learn to talk more about my art because I get nervous, and so I get a little nervous, and the kids can tell. They can definitely tell. And so then I get mixed up in what I'm saying about my own work, and I should know. I should be the expert in my own work, right? But I do learn something, and sometimes it's interesting because, like I went to a film studies class a year ago, and they were talking about film, and then they were in early film, so they were talking about like Ziga Vertov and so Russian film, Russian montage and everything. And they were calling it, what was the word that like really, really hurt me? It was like primitive film. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, it's not that old. It's not that old. Like,
that's interesting. Primitive, the whole idea of...
And Russian montage has informed a lot of our filmmaking today.
Yeah.
And so to consider it primitive is a little I was just sitting there in the back of the room going, oh my God, this is painful.
Well, I think it also is like a product of sensibilities. Like, I listened to a podcast because I'm definitely sort of a classic film lover, and that genre of film, although that's a very broad category, but like classic film meaning lots of them, film noir, like other kinds of classic film, but just where there was a different style, because I think at that time, because of what people had access to, what the technology was, people went to a theater and they knew that I'm coming here for a couple of hours to have a story told to me. I'm chilling,
to get
away from everything, and I want to escape. Now it's not entirely different, but you can't assume that your film is going to be experienced in that theater setting in that way. It could be on somebody's iPad or, and so there's I think, I don't know, I hear what you're saying. I like, I like old school, styles, and I heard a podcast, I listened to a podcast called The Treatment earlier today, which is on KCRW, and it's done by Elvis Mitchell, who's a film critic for the New York Times, and he had David Simon on, who he's doing The Deuce now on HBO, but he also did The Wire. He was behind The Wire. And he was talking about the style of production in terms of what you see on the screen, and how in television there's this rush to always don't let the audience, what did he say? Don't let them go to the bathroom. Don't let them go before the first commercial break. You have to do something to really blow their minds before then. And he just is more of a protracted storyteller. It's not about that for him. Yeah. And I appreciate that, because I think that there's a value to that. And if you can't wait for it, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of other things. If you can't wait for it, then maybe you don't deserve it. I don't know.
So McCole is asking where you're from and what brought you to Columbus.
I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and then lived in Chicago, and I lived in New York for a long time. And before I came to Columbus, I was in the UK, and I was there for a writing residency in Scotland, and then was in London and came back to the States and saw my parents, who were still in Toledo at the time, and was looking for work back in New York, and I found something here. So it was supposed to be a 3-month contract, and it turned into 3 years, and now I'm not a contractor anymore, but it's been 5 years.
And I think we met right because you were saying that, I'm just back to Ohio, right when we met, and I didn't know any of that. I didn't know that you were living in the UK or anything, but so roughly 5 years that we've been friends.
Yeah. Yep. Funny how time flies. Well, it's been fun. So time flies.
Yeah. And it was interesting because all you wanted was a DVD, and we just stood out in front of my my apartment house and talked for a long time, and I felt like we clicked as friends, and I'm so glad that we remained friends because of that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Me too. Me too.
So, and we're losing Celia briefly, which is why we rushed Celia's talk, which I'm lamenting, because we have such wonderful chats over dinner. And so, but she'll be back.
I'll be back, yeah.
She'll be back.
For sure. Got stuff to do here, so I'll be back.
And
got people here, so I'll be back.
So, did we get all the questions? What's going on? This is the one thing that I feel awkward about live, is trying to handle the questions, and Matt's over there handling questions, and there's 3 different, and we're trying to do this as a decent setup so that it's not just off of a phone. And so we've got mics, and Matt's handling audio and cameras and handling some of the chat for us. And then if we get questions that I didn't see, he's writing them on the board, which he hasn't had to do yet. So is there anything you want to cover that we hadn't covered?
No, I think my website is artisticfreedomltd.com, and the website for Godspeed is godspeedsci-fi-movie.com. And if people would go take a look, that would be amazing.
Now, there's a question I've been dying to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with artistic freedom as your...
I came up with that because I felt like as a black filmmaker and black artist that I wanted to be free to express myself as I am, like being who I am without, because I felt like there were a lot of boxes and there were a lot of sort of categories and all of this stuff, and I was like, I don't fit into any of them, and I have no desire to. So I need the freedom. I am claiming the freedom to be the kind of artist and to have the artistic vision that I have. Mm-hmm. And that was really it. And, I think that is also true on many levels. It's true on many levels. In terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of myself just as an individual, just as Celia. So yeah, it's a good, every time I see it, it sort of reminds me.
We're getting notes.
Don't talk about getting notes.
Forget. Cats? Cake. Don't forget cats either. I mean, seriously, don't forget cats.
We have cake.
We do have cake, because on Saturday it's my birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And Celia won't be here, so we are enjoying cake together.
Oh, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
Cranberry orange.
Mm-hmm. Gluten-free Trader Joe's.
Cheers to you.
I'll have mine upstairs. It's fine.
Oh, man. I thought I had something else that I was going to ask. Wow, we're 45 minutes in. Mm-hmm. And you have handled this, because you, weren't feeling so great today.
Nicole says it's Nikki Vember.
It is Nikki Vember. I take over the whole month.
You can talk about that for a minute.
So when I was 18, I found out that Mickey Mouse shares a birthday with me.
Oh, really?
And because I share a birthday with someone I grew up with,
mm-hmm.
and she loves Mickey Mouse. And she said, we share a birthday with Mickey Mouse. And I did not know that I shared a birthday with Mickey Mouse.
Interesting.
And I started looking into it, and he gets a month. They haven't named it Mickey Vember or anything. I was like, well, I need to one-up that. It's November.
Right.
And my name is Nikki. And they blend just right.
Yeah.
And so the month is mine because Mickey Mouse gets a month. Ergo, I do too.
Shoot, I didn't know, so I'm a little bit late. What is this, November? We're almost halfway into it. I didn't realize it was... Although Matt did mention that before.
I'm not really that egotistical. I just think it's hilarious to announce Nikki Vember.
I think it's great. I think you should start a promotion. Have a whole Groupon category like Nikki Vember. Don't you know it's Nikki Vember? I get 30% off.
I get all kinds of things. I get coupons. Why do you not know how to handle my coupon?
We do know people who do that kind of thing, so.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So on Saturday, you will be warm and in California and not experiencing snow or whatever is going on here, right?
Right.
Not as warm as everybody likes to think California is, because you'll be...
Not be northern.
Yeah. But, we will be going to prom at the Vanderelli room. So feel free to come to hang out with us at prom.
So are you gonna not have any of the awkwardness of teen proms? Is that what is that part of adult prom? Is that you get to shed the awkwardness?
I'm wondering. I've not been to adult prom.
I
don't
love
know.
the idea.
I can give the blurb.
Okay.
So it's the Ethels of Spencer Cove and the Vanderelli Room are proud to present Prom Night 2017. This year's theme is enchantment. Join us on Saturday, November 18th for an evening of dancing and socializing. $5 to get in. BYOB.
Hey.
We can drink at prom.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You don't have to sneak. You don't have to sneak, which is what I did.
I just took a girl.
Oh, did you? Mm-hmm. How'd that go? Did you have a good time?
She was my best friend, and she had moved away.
Oh.
And so I was like, there's no one. I paid to go with a guy and then dumped him. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, I'm out this money, and I would rather just take a friend. Mm-hmm. And the school said, well, but they didn't talk to me about it. I was like, well, I'm taking Cassie. Everyone knows Cassie. Mm-hmm. She'll have fun. And they said to one of my friends, oh, Nikki can't take a girl. She's not a lesbian. And I was like...
So you could only take a girl if you were a lesbian?
So I had to, yeah, I had to be out of the closet to take a girl, right? And I said, well, screw that, I'm straight. I'm just taking a friend. Mm-hmm. I was like, they have to come and tell me.
Right.
They didn't. So I took my friend.
Right on.
So, yes, back in 98, I took a girl to prom without too many problems. They did refuse to announce us together, but it was 98. And
you weren't
we
really
weren't
together. So, yeah.
Right. So.
Oh, my God. So many things that I hear about schools sound like the school, like the principal or something from a bad 80s movie. You know what I mean? Like, where you're just like, really? Like, dude, are you serious? Don't you have other things to be concerned about?
Exactly. I'm surprised they let me. But
you were going to do it anyway.
I was going to do it anyway. Just did it. So what, we've had cake. We've talked about a ton of stuff.
We have.
Yeah, we talked about Godspeed.
Oh, I didn't even see the green writing.
The green notes are kind of faint there.
I didn't even see that. Oh, wow.
And we got Roxy. Although I still didn't say Roxy 15. It is Roxy 15.
It is Roxy 15. Roxy 15, ROXE15.com is the site for Roxy 15, which features some fantastic actors from New York. We shot it in New York. So April Mathis is Roxy, who is just she's just a stunning, like, amazing actress. Eric McKay, who is as well a stellar actor. We have Michael J. Kaplan, who is playing a really crazy role, and he does it really well. And it's interesting because when we shot Roxy 15, I didn't know Michael at all. Or Mike, I'd call him Mike. But, and he really went, like, all out and was really out there. And then it turns out he's not like his character. I'll put it that way.
Oh.
I guess there's a little bit of his character in him, but...
It's time to remake the high school film genre. Oh, McCole is asking. It probably is.
Yeah, I'm not really big on remaking. I'm just like...
Stranger Things is trying real hard with the second season. We watched the first episode last night. Oh my gosh, they're trying so hard to make it look like an 80s movie. And
really?
Like, with the music and everything, yeah.
But it's not high school, it's elementary.
But are they junior high now?
No, it's elementary, junior high, and high school.
Oh yeah, because there are multiple characters, yeah.
I need to see it. I haven't seen... I saw the first season, but I haven't seen any of the second.
Well, we kind of watched it in reverse the other night at the bar. because it was playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I could see it in the reflection, and so we were. Yeah. But I think we need to reinvent the high school genre. Maybe not remake, but reinvent.
How would you do it? How would you reinvent it?
I don't know. I mean, the formula does work. I always wanted to tackle the school shooting idea, though. Like, that was my first major. I knew in high school I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I wanted to. And then, no, it was right before Columbine. It was the major one before Columbine happened, and I was so in shock because it could have happened anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it was so, I started having these visions of how it would could play out really, really bad in the high school that we were in. And I was like, oh God, this could be really, really terrible. And I wanted to take that and grow it into a script. And I did write a script that I abandoned and still needs work to this day, but I wanted it to be non-judgmental. So I wanted it to be equal. Like, a woman could do this too, or a girl could do this too.
Oh.
Not just boys.
I thought
but in reality, it's all white males that are doing it for the most part.
Yeah. I thought you meant non-judgmental, like, well, it's not as bad.
No. Non-judgmental,
like,
and like anyone could do this.
Yeah,
like, we shouldn't just be saying, well, this kid that's from a broken home is going to shoot up the school, and start applying that, because when it first started happening, guidance counselors were pulling kids aside that they thought were dangerous.
Oh, really?
And so I wanted to say, well, the kid that does this might not be the kid you pull aside. And so that was...
So let me ask you, when you were in high school, were there kids that, when you saw Columbine or whatever, did you think of kids that you went to high school with where you were like, oh, that he would have been the one, like he might have done that, or she, for that matter?
Not really. Post high school, Matt and I talked about it, and there were specific people that were singled out as possibly, like, you could be this, or you're dangerous because you wear a trench coat. And I think Matt was singled out specifically because of that.
Yeah, this was even before Columbine. I graduated in '96, and my junior year, I was singled out because I wore trench coats, and I actually inherited them all from my grandfather. He had passed away, and he had all these awesome pinch caps and fedoras and trench coats, and I started wearing them. And my senior year, they actually changed the dress code book, and no one could wear any coats in class. Coats had to go in the lockers and be locked away. And this was before Columbine had even happened. And it's because... what my Spanish instructor came up to me after class once and said, "Hey, Matt, I know you. You've been in my classes for a few years now. I know this isn't you, but some of the teachers are talking about you in your trench coat and think that you're gonna, like, bring weapons, or you're selling drugs, or there's something going on, and you should just be aware of that." And so it became a big issue. So I had long hair at the time. And, I started growing a beard in when I was, like, 13. So, I very, very much fit the type of a trench coat mafia. But, like, you need to have more than one person.
Right, to have a mafia, right?
I think I grew up in high schools that were, like, well, either of them were very, very small. So, we weren't... Yeah, I see. There's a couple of questions. We weren't necessarily... We were all sort of tight-knit, even if we didn't like each other. Like, 30 people in a class.
Sure.
It's different.
Yeah.
Whereas Matt was in a class of 300, so you could fall through the cracks. Very easily. So, I think Nicole is asking from the perspective of the victims. I think it was, in a way, no, it wasn't from the victims. It was from the potential shooters, but you never knew who was going to be the shooter. Mm-hmm. It was just proposing these stereotypes of teenagers, kind of like all the stereotypes in Pretty in Pink, or, what's the other one?
10 Things I Hate About You?
10 Things I Hate About You. Yeah, where they give you multiple stereotypes. So it was from those stereotypes, and then someone shoots up the school, and you don't know who it is, to kind of defend being that lost feeling of being a teenager. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Derek asks, and I think this is for you specifically, is there a particular film that has influenced you as a filmmaker, and what lessons, inspiration did you take from it?
Oh my God. Derek.
Way to ask a really big, complex question.
I want to kill you. There have been many, probably, that have influenced me at different points. I think in terms of science fiction, Blade Runner was a huge one. And I think what it did for me was give me this very concrete vision of a functioning future world that looked very much like enough like the world that we live in, that I was like, oh wow, and thought about that within the context of filmmaking, of telling a story on screen. Also, just the concepts of having these kind of androids that were so lifelike. And really, I think that film spoke to this kind of it was an early sort of exploration of looking at artificial intelligence and what happens when it gets to the point where it's like, I know I'm artificial, but I'm here and I'm real, and I don't want to go away just because you've decided that it's time for me to stop existing. I don't want that. I mean, that's really intriguing to me. I mean, I don't know, the original Blade Runner to me was such a visual, it was visually epic, and it really showed these things, and I was like, wow, the shots of like the cars flying and going into the Tyrell Corporation. It's like this huge pyramid, and it kind of looked like the Mayans, looked like a Mayan, but it's like this little bitty car flying towards it, and you see how huge massive the building is. It's like, wow, think about what it took to build that. And in the city, those huge video screens and all that, it was just a different, it showed, just seeing that world was mind-blowing.
Derek said, I knew you would have an awesome answer.
Thank you, Derek.
Nicole said she got a lot of hassle in high school for not wanting to wear socks. Offensive foot odor can ruin the system. You bet it can.
Yeah. Offensive foot odor can ruin anything. Really. That's a universal. Yeah. Offensive foot odor. Yikes.
But, we spent a lot of time on Friday together, hanging out at 400 for Franklin and Fridays. And I have a piece up that I collaborated with Deidre Eccles about body shaming.
A fantastic piece. Fantastic interactive art piece.
You can go and write a body shame that you are inspired about.
On mannequins.
On mannequins,
that are supposed to be this perfection, which, they're sort of an unreal, an unrealistic, like a distorted view of the body.
Yeah. Plasticky and overly overly skinny and overly sculpted in ways that...
Yeah. Well, I think also the fact that you could take it apart. Yeah, you could take it. Because have just the torso, just the arms, just the legs, just the... What do you call this part? Not just the crotch, but like, what do you call this?
What is the hip area?
Pelvis.
Yeah. Yes.
I need to know. I need to know what this is called.
We're getting slap happy here. And so, like, that kind of what McCall said kind of plays into it. Because, like, I edited a bunch of older commercials together that, and so they're a lot more aggressive, a lot more like, if you're not wearing this makeup, you're not flawless, or you're not perfect, or if you're not wearing you're... And so, what is foot odor? Like, really?
Right.
Really?
It's a temporary thing. I mean, it's easily resolved, put it that way. You don't really have to buy a new product for it. I mean, if you have a condition. Yeah. Otherwise, you could just use your soap and water. But I think it's interesting what you're saying about the commercials, because the commercials in her piece are from the 80s and maybe 90s, but definitely 80s. And they are much more aggressive about just saying flat out, like, if you don't use this, you're not going to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, what good are you? Like, you might as well not even be here. It's and I think now that messaging is more subtle.
But you can still pull out those pieces, because that's what I did.
It may be worse.
I pulled out those pieces. Well, I mean, some of the Axe body spray ads were more current. Yeah. Because we have Axe as a thing in our society. Go figure.
Well, we are scent-driven.
We're still
scent-driven. I mean...
the violin moved over there. Out of nowhere.
Somebody's saying something. Somebody agrees with me.
Exactly.
We're scent-driven.
Exactly. So, yeah. Cases, and change your shoes that you wear on a regular basis.
And your socks.
Yeah.
And your socks. Yeah, that's a big one.
Sorry, McCall. You took us down that path, though. Honestly.
We're not going to stay with foot odor.
No, we're not going to stay with foot odor.
Well,
because we're filmmakers. Yeah. We're talking about film. We made it down weird paths. But we did talk about, like, body shaming. And I mean, our media does that to us. I mean, our media tells us we're not good enough. We're not perfect if we're not wearing Hanes pantyhose, or we're not... I live the rabbit hole. McCall. Or if you're not, like... perfectly shaven, or if you're not, like, you can't see your pores, or like you have the longest lashes ever,
hairless, poreless,
but perfect hair on top. Have to have perfect hair on top, just hairless everywhere else.
Well, I think though, again, technology has also allowed people to react against that in a very organized and I think effective way. Like, there are these anti-campaigns, you know, the Real Women campaigns, and just all of this awareness, I think, now, where it's like, you know, I'm great the way I am.
Exactly.
I love me, you know, those sort of things, which I think is really beautiful. Like, I think it's wonderful. But the fact that people can express that, online, and then all these other people around the world can also see it, who may be somewhere feeling very isolated. And then they see, oh, well, this person is dealing with the same thing, and look, oh yeah, it's not just me. Great, right on, you know. I think that's awesome.
We're back to the wonderful thing that global access gives us.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Facebook and YouTube and all of this social media can be a drag sometimes.
Yeah, sure, no doubt.
Yeah.
No
but
doubt.
it can give us access to someone in Germany.
Yeah.
And give us a way to communicate with people in ways that we couldn't before.
I mean, I think it's, they're tools, just like any other tool. Fire is a tool. You know, it can warm you or it can burn your house down, depending on how you use it. So, it puts the onus on us, as to how we use these tools. Like, if you use social media to stalk somebody, I've been told that's wrong. I'm just kidding.
Celia.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, that's the question I have is, like, you guys, both of you have been talking for about an hour now, and this is just streaming, and, like, you can do whatever you want, say whatever you want. This is public broadcast media, which has basically been dead for a long time outside of PBS. Like,
right.
So what, what kind of message is this giving out to the world? Like, what's your thoughts on being able to, anyone can do this? Look at this.
We can do this. We can do this right here, right now, in a basement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, when you just said that, Matt, it made me think about pirate radio, like in the UK. Like, them having pirate radio and just, like, broadcasting. I forgot what the song is, but, there's a song, but it's like, the whole idea of just, being free. Like, fuck. It's like, we can do it.
McCole says super fan or stalker.
It's all about
there's a fun
There's a fun super
one.
fan. Well, you don't trip over your favorite band at their concert. You just don't do that.
Oh, some of us do.
Some of us do. I don't think that makes you a super fan, though, because you're so awkward as to not know what your favorite band looks like in person.
You probably made their day. Honestly, they probably talked about that after.
Oh, this girl tripped over us and then she punched out a dude.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they talked about that later that night.
Oh my goodness. Because, you know what? This is what Barbie in the 80s taught me. We girls can do anything.
Barbie taught you that?
Barbie taught me that.
Was that when there were like 90 different versions of Barbie?
Oh yeah, and she could be an astronaut.
Right.
And do any, and work in an office.
Right.
And be a vet.
Yeah.
Barbie could do anything.
Yeah, and if Barbie can do it, we all can do it.
Exactly, because it took a lot for that girl to stand up.
That's a good one.
Oh, man.
Do we end it on that?
Yeah, I think we should. I think we ended on that note. Yeah.
Oh, my
goodness. It took a lot for her to stand up.
Oh, McCole said Barbie did it all and on her tiptoes, too. Exactly.
That's right.
Yep. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I really appreciate it.
This is awesome. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
So, did I talk about everything I was supposed to? I think I got all the points on the board. I talked about,
the new notes?
New notes, and what is next? Oh, there's CMAR coming up, and I thought there would be a date up there, but I'm missing that. So it's coming up at some point. So submissions are due soonish, but last time I said soonish and I was wrong. So, they're not due soonish at all. So it's on January 19th, and submissions are due the 29th of December. And you've been to Columbus Moving Image Art Review, and it's a great
it's awesome, yeah. It's just the city. Yeah, it is. Just one after the other, all these really unique and really distinctive pieces, visions which I think are, because I find myself being like, oh my God, this person's in Columbus? Mm-hmm. Oh, they're in Columbus? They're in Columbus? Yeah. I love it.
And he's writing me one more note. Next week. Okay, so we're not sure if we're going to have one next week. I was going to start doing every other week, but I couldn't miss a chance to talk to you, so
thank you.
Made the opportunity happen before you left.
I appreciate it.
Anything else you want to talk about? One more talk?
No, I just would ask, please visit the website, GodspeedSciFiMovie.com, and if you want to find out more about me, I'm at ArtisticFreedomLTD.com, and support independent film. That's what I would say. Please, we're doing it for you. So give us some love.
All right.
Invite others.
Oh, invite others. Share this video. Share Celia's work, because you've got a Vimeo, right?
Yeah, I do. On Vimeo, I am Artistic Freedom.
I think I'm hosting the trailer for Roxy. So, Nicolette Cinematographics has Roxy.
Or it's also at the Roxy15.com. The trailer is there as well.
And the Godspeed trailer, or the teaser, will be available soon. Mm-hmm. I just need to make it. Private message, either of us. Or private message me if you want to be on the show. But feel free to private message either of us if you have any further questions.
Please do.
Yeah. So, are we happy? Are we good?
We're good.
All right. See y'all later.
Good night.
Bye. Now I have to figure out how to turn this off every week.